All right, first time with you guys. Welcome back. First time with you guys since the tragic passing of Corey Adams, and he was just with us for a short time, but he made a major impact on us by how he worked, who he was, how he led, even as a freshman. I told the story at the service here the other night. Very rarely do we ever have a freshman that in off-season conditioning and running was challenging seniors to finish in a standard, and that's who he was. And just a tragic passing. And obviously our thoughts and prayers have been with the family and having them up here and spending time with them. But out of respect to them, we won't have any more comments on that. But players, we bumped up a day early. We were able to get a waiver so that they would have Saturday off for his funeral Saturday. Kind of on another loss, since seeing you guys, I just really want to thank Ole Miss and Oxford and the people here again. Passing my mother and celebration of life last week, and Pastor Fish and how he led that and the passion that he had and how he spoke about her and so many people here, that just would have never guessed that my parents would end up finishing their lives in Oxford, Mississippi, and really it was an amazing time, to have my brother here and the grandkids here for both of them for the last few years was very special. But the people of Oxford were just amazing again. So just want to thank everybody, especially Pastor Fish, for that. So I think we've created a standard here, transitioning back to football here, of expectations and what we've done. And so I do take a lot of pride in that with our staff and our former players of what was done, and our staff all coming back for this season is very exciting because there's so much player turnover in nowadays football. And anyway, no matter where you are, plus we lost a lot of great players, a number of them to the NFL. And I said it at Media Day, just to be in a position where we have these attendance records being set, sold out season tickets already, 3 10-win seasons in the last 4 years. The previous 51 years there was 3 top 12 finishes in the last 4 years, and won the previous 51 years is really gives me perspective about what our players and staff have been able to do here. So that's the standard that we've created. It's the expectations that we have. 21 wins in the last 2 years. So these players have been talked to a lot about that, and that's hopefully why they came here, was understanding that, what we've been able to achieve and the level that we want to play at and expect to play at. 3 winningest programs since COVID in the SEC, including the new programs, are Georgia, Alabama, and Ole Miss. And that's our expectation and standards of how we expect to play. There'll be a lot of competition in this camp, as always, regardless of what players have done before. They heard that last night, and that reflected in practice today to create a very competitive atmosphere. I think that this team needs to really have a blue-collar mindset to outwork people and to grind people out in games. So we've been working on that, and it's an exciting group of kids coming together.
Questions for Coach? At least for the little bit that we were out there today, it looked like Caleb Odom was working with the tight ends a little bit. Do you see him factoring into that room? Do you see him going back and forth this year?
Yeah, I can't totally predict that. He is very unique in what he can do. We did, as you said, move him in there a lot in that area today, and I think that he's got a chance to be a weapon there. And we do have, probably, I would say positionally, our best depth on our roster would probably be outside receiver. a receiver in general. So him playing there, I think, makes us even more dangerous.
Kind of speaking to that, Lane, in regards to Caleb, did y'all kind of already approach him about that before the Luke Haas thing, or did that kind of add some urgency to making that kind of move?
Yeah, I just said that to our staff. We talk a lot about obstacles the way or of things happening that seem to be issues at the time. It might be, really positive things. And I just said that right before I came down and we were talking about it. Like, maybe that might have been a really good thing. Obviously we don't ever want somebody injured, but with that and the numbers outside versus at tight end spot, and move him and then get Luke back and then be even more dangerous with everybody playing all those spots.
Coach, with fall camp coming around this year, what, if anything, were some of the differences that maybe you wanted to do compared to fall camp last year? Were there things that you maybe really cumulatively wanted to kind of do differently to maybe expect different players to kind of show up this fall camp compared to last year?
Yeah, I think we had a lot of returning players last year, returning significant starters, whether they'd been here or somewhere else. Kind of a veteran team, and so this team is not that. So there's a little bit difference that way. There were also, last year a number of players that were being managed with injuries, off-season surgeries from that veteran group. So this seems to be a lot more of our players are out there practicing and not dealing with injuries right now. But at the same time, too, we've got a lot more work to do and got to be a little more creative with things because we don't have as established players as we did a year ago.
How much do you anticipate Austin Simmons being involved in the rushing game this year, designed and scramble?
I mean, that's a pretty schematical question, but I don't know. I'm okay saying this. I wouldn't picture him being really involved in a lot of quarterback runs.
Lane, condolences to you and the football program during these tough times. I know how huge mental health is for you all here in this building. So how do you kind of incorporate that? I know everything's so fresh, but how do you incorporate that and still try to have this joy to go out there and get ready for the season?
Yeah, we just spent a lot of time with them. Even last night in the first team meeting, I talked to a lot because there's so many new guys about, I think that I know we are. We're very open door here, and I know every coach says that. And I tell our players, and probably not much that you've gone through that this staff hasn't. The staff's been through a lot in their lives, very experienced staff that way, I would say, with off-the-field things. And so I think we're really close with our players that way. They know that. We spend a lot of time with them and really try to help them through that. We tell them that as they come here. It's not just our job to coach you in football. It's our job to surround you with people that have gone through the things you're going to go through as premier college players.
Yeah, Lane, any update on Kelvin, replacing Kelvin and replacing Alex Brown, kind of just where is that right now and where is that process?
Yeah, no update there. We weren't really in a rush, with kind of being in the middle of summer. Those guys did a great job for us. Excited for them, to continue their career. And so we're still in that process.
Coach, I know we've asked you this before since the portal stuff started a few years ago, the learning curve, and you may not have players as long as you've had in the past. Where do you think, as a staff, you are there, and have you changed some methods or doing something to accelerate the learning curve to be up to speed when the season starts?
Yeah, we do a lot more practicing, and the rules are a little bit looser that way now. So I feel like it's a little bit more pro style that way, where we got more practices, almost OTA-ish. So I think that helps. I think that, unfortunately, it's the world we're in. It is not good, and I'm not up here to gripe. I didn't start with this or anything. It's not a good system, and it's not good for college football. Professional sports don't have this amount of turnover on a roster, not even close. So to do it in college and you're just on your third, fourth school, and you don't really care about the school. You didn't pick it. You didn't grow up wanting to play there. That's not really good. And so it is what it is. All coaches, I'm sure, are just trying to maximize the situation that they're in, but it's not good for college football. It's not good for locker rooms. And it's obviously not very good for chemistry, but I don't think it's very good for the passion of college football. You know, that everybody's just free agents 2 times a year and a number of guys just going wherever to get the most money and not having any care for where they're playing.
Coach in the back, on the topic of chemistry, obviously Austin's coming in, not with a ton of in-game experience, but certainly somebody who's been in your program. You mentioned receivers being a piece of depth for you. How do you get him kind of on the same page quickly as you go through this camp and in the beginning of the season?
Well, they've had a good offseason. They were here in the spring, and, you know, a lot of those receivers have had good careers already, very prolific receivers. And so those guys have done a really good job together. And I'd like to, I hope I'm not wrong, you know, very well could be the strength of our team.
Questions for Coach?
Lane, obviously, I assume it's not bothersome to anyone in this building that you guys haven't been the talk of national media like you were last year with all the name and the talent that everyone knew was on this roster. What is the mindset for you guys internally when you're not being notarized as much anymore?
Yeah, I think it is what it is. You know, a lot of players, we had a lot of really good players that got drafted and that were on that team that were really good players, so that's understandable. You know, I do think that, again, it speaks to the program, though, like Kyle was saying walking in, you know, that a number of people have said to him, you know, before, if you would have lost a lot of significant players here, you know, you'd be looking at the voting and be, you know, at the bottom of the conference, you know, versus questions like that. Well, is it different that you're not being talked about, you know, in the top 10 of the country? So it's a good place to be for Ole Miss that those questions are coming up now.
Anything else?
Coach, if I'm not mistaken, you kind of limited full contact last year because of your seasoned roster. You got a new roster this year. Do you have to ramp it up with the contact or not take that chance?
No, I think you do. I mean, again, you can do whatever you want. It's my opinion, what we're going to do. You know, there'll be more tackling, especially because you have so many new defensive people that are going to play in space. So, yeah, we need to do that.
Anything else? All right, we'll wrap with Coach. Paul, I'll take you guys out of the